All right, welcome back, Precious Metal Gents podcast. I'm Zan, here with not Brian, but Justin, 740 Smith Cards. Brian is out this week on, well, pre-paternity leave. Baby has not come yet, but it will soon. So he is out for this week, potentially next week, not sure yet. But I have my friend Justin, like I said, 740 Smith Cards, filling in. Justin, thanks for hopping on, man.
Hey, thanks, Zan. It's an honor to be on here. Hopefully, Brian's doing all right and he can come back next week. But Super Bowl week, so I'm going to fill in like Jeff Hostetler or Doug Williams and try to win the Super Bowl for us.
I think you're selling yourself short, man. You're more like a Kurt Warner or Tom Brady. I think that's most
Well,
people would agree.
I appreciate that. Well, it's great. It's great to be here.
So Justin and I are going to run through a condensed version of the recurring segments, and then we'll just kind of riff a little bit on some things we picked up lately and maybe what we're doing with our collection. So first up, mail day. I just had a couple of cards I posted on Instagram, two Jamar Chase cards, 2022 Prism Manga and a 2021 Donruss Night Moves. Both are relatively short printed inserts, about maybe 25 or less of each, graded by PSA. Kind of fits with my theme that I've been going with modern receivers lately. But other than that, I mean, I have something I'll reveal the big one later in the show. But other than that, no big pickups lately. How about anything for you, Justin?
No, Zan. I've been pretty much working on a couple projects and haven't picked anything up recently. Been working on trying to be satisfied with what my collection looks like now, not just getting those dopamine hits recently. And I used to be pretty good at needing to have a mail day, but I've been pretty fortunate that the cards I've been picking up, I haven't needed to have a mail day every week. They've been holding me over.
Words of wisdom right there. Yeah, it's something we could all probably do a little bit more of is spend more time with the collection and kind of look at what we already have versus what's coming. But so I guess that's safe to say that neither one of us got this week's card of the week, which is a 1997 Skybox Premium Rubies Deion Sanders PSA 8 went for a whopping $14,400 this past Sunday, February 2nd, on Fanatics Collect Weekly. It's at an all-time high for a Deion Sanders card. What did you think of this sale? Any thoughts you have about this, about Sanders or the set?
Oh, well, we both collect 97 rubies, so we know how special the set is. The Deion Sanders going for almost $15,000 is pretty eye opening. I did look up the deposit report. There's four of them total PSA, so it's not one that's very easy to come by. That was an eight. I think there was one nine, an eight, a seven, and a six. So there's if you had
Wow.
your different price point options there, and
Yeah.
I think the second highest Dion ever was a 97 red PMG, and it was like half of
Eight
that price.
grand. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's a pretty large jump for Dion, but in defense, um, that's a beautiful card with him getting ready. It looks like he's getting ready to make a move. He's watching the wide receiver. It's just a great action shot with, that beautiful background. So if I was a Deion Sanders collector, I would want it. Just $15,000 is a lot to think for, a cornerback. More than likely,
Yeah.
that's the highest defensive guy that's ever sold in that set, would be my guess.
Yeah, I think you're right. I looked up a few. So the highest selling Barry Sanders, well, the top three are Barry Sanders PSA 8 for $40,000 last March, 2024. Jerry Rice PSA 8 for $24,400, October 28th, 2023. Brett Favre PSA 8, $21,600 last July. So all those were in the span of like about a year. But the Dion, I think the Rice sold about 15 grand, maybe, I think, a few nights ago. It's like a BGS 8.5. I think that was Jesse's old
Yep.
copy. So the fact that the Dion was right there with it, that's pretty surprising. This must have been one of those situations where two people were just after it and they wanted that high grade copy of it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. This had to be two people that's either set collecting or possibly collecting Hall of Famers in that set, or I mean, Dion just went to he went and interviewed for the Cowboys job. I mean, he is in the news.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I mean, obviously that might be a little bump, but good strong sale for that set. I mean, I mean, Dion is iconic. I mean, my kids know Dion. You know what I mean? And it's not
Yeah,
because he's on TV all the time. He's not, any kind of broadcaster, but everybody knows Dion. So,
yeah,
interesting sale. It scares you, but I mean, as we know, I mean, I collect Eddie George, and there was a recent Eddie George sale of a PSA 7 that went for a lot more than I ever anticipated. So, I mean, the set's moving right now, also.
yeah. It's that's right. The whole thing is scaling up. So, what is like for me? I look at because baseball didn't have the set. Really, like for me, the Favre is on my list for sure, and that's a big one. What are there any 97 rubies in basketball too that are kind of on your list or that you're kind of eyeing maybe in the future?
Oh yeah. Like, I've got the Eddie I want. I've went and tried to get the Jerry Rice before, just because it's such an iconic card and it's a beautiful card.
Right.
More than likely, that's not going to be on my radar. Um, Orlando Pace, possibly. You
Yeah.
know, that's one I would be interested if it popped up. Um, Chris Webber's got two of them in the '97 Rubies basketball set, which is interesting. But I'm trying to do a little mini PC of Chris Webber, and that's one of the ones on my radar. I mean, between me and you, I love the '97 red PMGs, but there's so many of them in comparison to the '97 Rubies. I think I prefer picking up a couple Rubies than the red PMGs right now. So that's kind of where
Yeah.
I'm thinking. And I mean, I just picked up, we might talk about it later, a '97 Rubies basketball card. So I own a couple of those right now, and I love the set. Just it's the set that's hard to get into because of the price point.
Yeah.
Even guys that aren't important. I mean, I bought a '97 Jimmy Jackson authentic last year,
Hmm.
and I paid more than any Jimmy Jackson card should ever be worth for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For somebody who has played on every in the NBA and now does college basketball on CBS, he would be ashamed on his card. So
Yeah. Well,
it's an offset. So I understand, the Dion going so high.
the basketball commons are even crazier. Like you saw those, some of them like 3,000 because
Yeah.
those set guys, some of those high end set guys are just throwing down 2-3,000 on like Luke Longley and like,
Well,
like
yeah,
Jim
yeah.
Jackson.
Those cards are hidden in binders someplace, as we all know. And there's 50 on the back of the card, but I don't think there's 50 out there. So
Yeah.
like cards are hard to come by. So like Dion, I mean, nobody collects football cards, so who knows about those Dions out there. But I can't imagine there's very many '97 Rubies Dions running around. I could say there's
Right.
four they report. So it's a strong number, but maybe it's a deserved number. I mean, especially
Yeah.
with football being where it's at today.
Yeah. And that's not, Skybox Premium was not like, I mean, it's a quote unquote premium product, but like when you think back on the time, that wasn't one that was like that popular in terms of who was ripping and stuff. Like the Rubies parallel wasn't like immediately a big hit. And so that's very possible. A lot of them are still in boxes. I mean, the Favre is the same way. I think there's only a few Favres, maybe 4 or 5 graded by PSA total. So you could see kind of the pop report seems to reflect that there are, it's almost like it would be like a print run of 10. Like most of the current gold prisms have like 6 or 7 graded copies,
Oh yeah,
So it's like,
yeah. And if
um,
it's a star player like LeBron James or Joe Burrow, there's probably 14 of the gold out of 10.
right. Yeah, that's true.
you know.
um, well, so that's interesting. We'll circle back to 97 rubies here shortly when we talk about your recent pickups. Only one listener question tonight. Please send them for next week. This is from For the Shoe 28. So, would you consider the 94 Pacific Marquee Prisms football one of the OG disco parallel designs? And I think the answer is yes. If you look up the marquees, they have a very similar design to what we now know as disco or no huddle or fast break or whatever it is in Panini, depending on what sport you're in. They have those circular designs. The only like maybe thing that's slightly different is that in the marquee prisms, the circles don't overlap, but in I think some of the modern Panini stuff they do, but it's a small distinction without a difference, I think. What do you think of, you like the early Pacific stuff in the early 90s? Because I know you have a couple of them.
Yeah, I do. I think it's very original back then, and it was one of the packs of cards you could regularly find. I'm a little older than probably some of these guys here, but early '90s is kind of when I was really buying a lot of packs of cards. And Pacific, you could always find, and I remember buying a lot of football in Pacific. I think it was '92, but it was one of those. It was different than everything else. It didn't have. Everybody remembers tops, and it felt like you were literally putting your hand on a piece of cardboard. What I mean? It had a
Right.
smoother, glossier finish, and they did some neat stuff. Um, Obviously, they're talking about the disco, which I'm not 100% familiar with, but I mean, I've heard the term for the Panini products. They're one of the ones who did the scope design.
Hmm.
I think they're very, very under. I don't know. No one thinks about them too much. I know in the
Right.
late '90s, I hear about the baseball, but it's not a set I collect a lot of. But I think they did a lot of neat stuff.
Yeah, I think for an early 90s, because technically that's still junk wax era, like up till 93, maybe 94. So you've got like, they were kind of these beacons and amongst the sea of like high end, I mean, like overprinted base cards. And so these aren't necessarily numbered, but like with the scope design, like you said, with the Saved by the Bell cards and the mosaic designs that they were there in 93, they did a lot of designs first. And so I think when we look back on that era, they still have sort of like a premium look, premium feel to them that you can't simulate with like score or collector's edge, I should say, or action packed or anything like that. So um yeah, Pacific definitely has some cool stuff. Good set to check out for early 90s if you want something that's affordable at that price point. Okay, so for our main segment, we just decided we wanted to talk a little bit about kind of consolidation and things we've been picking up lately, and sort of the method to our madness, so to speak. So, Justin, you went to the Dallas card show recently and came away with two pretty big cards. Tell us what they were, and then kind of how those deals came into place.
Okay. Yeah, I went down to Dallas there a couple weeks ago. First week of, I guess it was mid-January, and came home with two fantastic cards. First off is a '97 Metal Universe champion, Shaquille O'Neal Precious Metal Gems PSA 7. I don't
Ooh,
know if anybody's watching it, but
nice.
awesome. We were just talking about the Pacific scope design, and there's the scope.
Yeah,
You probably can't tell from here, but yeah, awesome card. Shaq dunking with the city of Los Angeles behind him. Just an iconic, set with one of the better players in it. And also came home with a '97 Skybox Premiums Kobe Bryant Rubies, the Team Skybox version of that card. And it's a PSA 6. Pretty good looking PSA 6. A lot of these cards in '97 stuck. So there's a little bit of front missing there, but not really that bad. But it's an awesome looking card. So, yeah, went down to make a deal. Had a larger card and made a deal with a gentleman that consisted of the Shaq PMG and was able to trade for that card, which is always awesome, and also to be able to come away with some other things. And another guy was going to Dallas, so I hit him up and made a deal pretty much right when we got there for the Kobe. So great little show. I say little, like if you've ever seen anything, it looks like it's a massive show.
yeah,
It really wasn't that big. It was enough that you can get around in one day. Um, a lot of great vendors, guys that, who you see at the National that have great stuff. So it was a very, very good experience. I mean, we talked about the Dion and the '97 Rubies. As you know, basketball, for one reason or another, holds a premium to football, and it's hard to find anybody. And when you're talking about the main mega stars, and Kobe's one of them, it's not always easy to make a deal for a card like that. So I was very pleased to be able to leave that show where I think the vendor was happy and I was happy also. So great transaction. And any change, same thing with that Shaq PMG. Those cards don't come up very often. A lot of people, they set out and they've got a course of time because they're looking for an '86 Fleer Jordan or a '33 Gaudy Roof or a '52 Mantle. Yeah, those are all iconic cards, but typically you can find one pretty quickly. Like the Shaq '97 PMG, those cards don't pop up. So when the chance comes, if you're ready or not, and that's something on your list, you've got to jump then. So you don't really have the time to really think of anything. And you know that as well as I do. You know, the cards that we're looking for, sometimes you've got to move the earth to get them. Sometimes you got to trade away cards you never thought you'd trade away. But
Right.
when something grabs a hold of you, you've got to go make that move. So
For sure.
very happy to come home with those cards.
And I know we had talked about you getting the that Shaq Champ PMG. That was one of the kind of the ones in the sort of the Shaq I guess catalog that you were interested in. The Kobe. So I'm interested. The Kobe, I know you had mentioned before, maybe thinking about getting like the base set rubies for that for Kobe there. Do you see this one as an adequate substitute? Or are you saying, I like this one, but I think maybe it'll be something I eventually use towards like a bigger Kobe card?
That's a good question because if you would have asked me before I got this card, it would probably be I would be considering using this and other cards to possibly consolidate to get the base Kobe. I've seen it before. It was actually at that show. It's a fantastic card, and this is the Team Skybox. You know, it's a kind of insert, but it's part of the regular set. So it's
Right.
not.
Subset. Yeah.
Yeah. And at first I was like, I don't know, but there's so much of that background, the amoeba style background. It goes across all the way across the back, and then it goes across the nameplate, which is very, very cool. So there's a lot of that, and it's a close up, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of, like Intimidation Nation and those kind of things where it's actually a close up. And just the fact of how much of Kobe is on this card, it's just an impressive looking card. So I don't know. You know, and they're called trading cards for a reason, I guess. I mean, if the possibility ever came up that I could move into just a base Kobe, I would love to do that. Obviously, you know, that Jordan's awesome where, you know, he's got the ball above his head. That is the dream card Jordan for me, I think. I would rather have it than 99% of the other Jordans. I mean, yeah, like a 99 PMG or even I mean, in my opinion, even a 98 and a 97 championship PMG, I would prefer the 97 Rubies. I just love
Wow.
that. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
just, you know, so that's a little different than most people. I just think that set's amazing.
Do you see yourself moving into a more expanded Shaq or Kobe PC or more expanded basketball PC, or do you feel pretty content with where it's at right now?
Yeah, I'm going to continue because more now I am collecting sets rather than players. So like
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested in 24 carats. I'm really interested in Skybox Super Raves. Really interested in 99 and 2000 Legacy Collection. You know, those that's where I spend 90% of my time is trying to find those sets. And then I'm like, you know, I get the opportunity. Um, example in Dallas, talking to a gentleman who I was like, we were just talking back and forth, and he was asking what I collected, and I said, you know, I love these 2000 legacies, and he's like, you're kidding me, and he's like, and he pulls out, and I've already posted on Instagram, it's a Terrell Davis, you know, out of 20, it's raw, but there's no PSA graded copies, so I mean,
Wow.
it's a pretty rare card, you know, and am I the world's biggest TD fan? No, I respect it as you know, but it's just like one of those things where it's like he's an important player in a set that I really enjoy. If I've got the ability to get it, I'm going to try to get it. So I'm doing that with baseball, basketball, and football. I think there's, you know, we're all football fans right now. You know, I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
America's sport. We're all like engraved in football, but you know, basketball was it was a sport I loved back in the '90s. So, you know, I find myself trying to look up Dirk Nowitzki cards or Allen Iverson cards or you know
Mm-hmm.
just random guys I enjoyed, you know, Ray Allen, just guys like that, and just seeing what their cards are and if I can ever find any of those sets I like. I love, for some reason, I love Derek Coleman. And I think the only reason I love Derek Coleman is because it was the first basketball jersey I ever got. And I was in like sixth grade. But I wanted it because I knew there was not a chance anybody else in school would have it. You know, it wasn't Michael Jordan. It wasn't Alonzo Mourning. It wasn't Shaq Penny. It was Derek Coleman. I was like, there's no chance anybody else is going to have this jersey. So I want it. So I'm not wearing this awesome jersey to school. And me and my friend both have Jamal Mashburn. You know what I mean? I'm just thinking the hot guy. But it's like there's no chance. So then I started being a Derek Coleman fan for that reason. So
Have
like
you found?
if I can find
Yeah,
him if I can find him in any of those sets, I always look for that stuff.
yeah. It's kind of like Jim Jackson for you too, right? There's that kind
Yep.
of kindred connection there
Well,
with
high
JJ.
guy, you know, and it just brought me to being a fan of him. I've always been a collector of the guys that are almost relevant, but they're not quite relevant. I mean, most of my PC is all almost Hall of Famers
Yeah,
from.
yeah,
So it's like that's for some, and then Michael Jordan. But I always liked these secondary stars because no one else liked them. I was like, these guys, somebody needs to like Mitch Richmond. I'll like Mitch Richmond.
yeah, yeah,
Kind
yeah.
of, kind of one of those things.
And you've got a nice blend because it's like you've got the guys like the Jackson Kobe's, and then the almost Hall of Famers like Eddie, or guys like AJ Green who had a sustained run of success. But then you have like some of the fun guys like Sean Casey,
Yeah.
that you kind of have like it's a balance, right? Do you find that like because over the past maybe let's say 6 months or so, both of us have been in different types of consolidation processes. Mine was like everything for one card. Yours is like a lot of things for a few bigger cards. Do you find that that's has that kind of worn, like, are you drained from that? Like, are you kind of worn out on consolidation?
I'm to the point now where I don't know what I could consolidate. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I mean, and that's the good thing about consolidation. You find all the stuff that you don't need. You thought you needed it because it was that dopamine hit. It's like, yes, I need to own every single serial numbered Eddie George that's less than 50. You know what I mean?
mhm.
So I'm buying all these cards, and I was like, and then you realize I need 7 of these total. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
That's a good area for me to be living in. It's so you can get all the sets you enjoy, and then there's always something that you could chase down the road. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. And just like anybody else, you start moving up, tiers of the ladder, and your taste gets better and better. So obviously, the price points sometimes get better and better. And I'm not always the smartest spender, so I'll buy a '97 Rubies Jim Jackson for more than anybody, but the one guy who needs him for a set,
right.
just because I like him. So sometimes consolidation is needed. Um, it gives you a chance to have somebody that I don't know if we were going to jump into consolidating or not, but it gives you a chance to have somebody that has more eyeballs than me. If I'm trying to sell,
Hmm.
I've got a small audience, so I use the consolidation tool and some of these guys to do that. Um, and as we said before, the cards I'm looking for, I don't have months to wait and pick the certain one I want. The one card I want is, it doesn't pop up very often. So I've got to be willing to make the move. And sometimes, consolidating or using some sort of funding source gives you the opportunity to have the time you need to,
Right.
not burden yourself, or most importantly, not burden your family.
That's
And,
true. What
you know,
with the go ahead, sorry.
as I'm saying, with the actual consolidation, it's a good, healthy, check of your collection. Like, we all change habits and all that kind of stuff. So, maybe for 6 months you realized you liked a certain player and then it just didn't fit. I mean,
Yeah.
after you really realize what you want. So, I've enjoyed the process of consolidating.
It's trial and error by and large, right? Like you think you like cards, and it's I don't think there's anybody who likes every card that they get, right? Even the nice stuff, especially if you're spending like 3K on a card and you get it, and it's like this is actually I do like it, but I like it 1,500 worth, not 3K
Yep.
worth, right? Do you feel like with the either the Kobe or the Shaq, the two new ones, either of those fit or both fit into your top five overall the cards that you have, or and if so, where?
Um, that's a good question. That's what I've always been able to say. I can't pick a Mount Rushmore for some reason, but
Yeah.
um, I would say the Shaq's awful close. Like,
Hmm.
it's pretty close. I mean, I've got a couple MJs I still like. Um, I'm always going to have a place for an Eddie George in my heart. So I mean, it's going to be up there someplace. And the Shaq's, just off the top of my head, it probably is. Kobe's probably a little farther down, but it's still an awesome card. And
Do
it's
you,
just hard to figure out. It's just like those things. It's football season, so obviously you're paying a little more attention to your football cards. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Baseball's been over for 3 months, and you still love them, but it's like, oh, I kind of forgot I had this Mark McGuire Platinum Medallion card. It's like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
love. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of those things. But yeah, the Shaq definitely it fits up there, and I've been looking at Shaq cards, for a while, just never pulling the trigger. You know what I mean? I've
Right.
always had a different focus. So, my focus may have been something. And as we probably all know, and a lot of your listeners probably know, You buy one card of somebody, then you go to the rabbit hole of that player, and your
Yeah.
next three probably that same player. So
Yeah.
there's a good chance of that. So
and
um,
and before you know it, you've got like three top cards, right? Like you've got the three card PC, but they're all juggernauts, and you're like,
yep,
wow, this happened kind of overnight, and
yep,
I sacrificed a lot for it. But
yeah. And
um,
but that's when you find out. First of all, the cards you probably gave up that you didn't want to give up probably went to a closer friend or somebody you know. So those are the cards that you're putting there in case you need them back. You know what I
right,
mean?
right,
There's other stuff, and a lot of stuff. You get rid of it and you never think of it again. So it's
that's
like, yeah,
true.
I owned that in the first place.
There's something kind of like I don't know how to describe it. There's something a little disappointing when you think you like a card more than you actually end up liking it when you get rid of it, and you're like, it feels off. It feels like I don't know how to describe the feeling, but it makes you feel almost like, wait, do I actually love cards at all? Like I,
Yeah,
I got rid of it. I thought I loved this card so much, then I got rid of it. I'm okay, but
yeah, no, I agree with that, and you're shocked, but you know, what I mean, sometimes you're like, yeah, this will be easy to move, and then like
hmm
and you're like literally a month later going, hey, I sold you this card, remember me if you need
yeah,
to get it back. It's like I miss it.
right.
So, and that means it's a truly card that you want. That's the way I always look at that.
That's
Because
true.
we buy every card. I mean, I buy every card because I think I want it forever. And in
hmm
the back of my mind, I know I'm not going to bring any of these cards to the grave with me. I mean, I'm not that guy. But I mean, hopefully my kids want them at some point. But if they
Right,
don't want, I'm going to let my wife spend that money on whatever she needs for the rest of her life. So
right.
they're all at the end of the day dispensable, but you don't realize which ones really aren't or really are at the same time. You don't know. Like we
Yeah,
all bought that card that was going to be the grail of all grails. Be satisfied. You get it, and you're like, me. I could,
yeah,
I could do with something better than this, or this doesn't hit my heart where I thought it was going to hit, which
yeah.
it hit us all. So it doesn't make it. I mean, it's one of those hobby health check. I mean, am I looking at the right stuff?
And as you go up in price point, that it gets more tenuous because you're like, well, wow, I spent a ton on this. Now it's like I do really love it, but I could get these like 25 cards that I really like for the price of this one card. And do I want the diversity and the quantity, or do I want like this one kind of grail card? And I don't know if you really like know until you get to the grail card. So I guess it's a good segue for me to kind of reveal this. So after 3 months of consolidation, finally got the card that I've been waiting for. FedEx shipped it overnight from, I'm sorry, Fanatics shipped it overnight via FedEx. Supposed to be here yesterday by 12 o'clock. Never came. It's just set out for delivery, set it all day today. And then at 5 o'clock, my wife finds this package sticking out of the mailbox. Mailbox is wide open. This was supposed to be a direct signature card. They're supposed to have come up and sign it. Didn't update the tracking, so it still doesn't even say it was delivered. But nevertheless, I opened it. It's here. It is the 1999 Brett Favre Metal Universe Gem Masters 1 of 1. Um, so months of thanks, yeah, months of consolidation finally done. I basically had to give up pretty much my entire collection we were talking about before. I ended up with, let's see, 90s cards. I ended up with about 8 of them, including the Bagwell Gem Masters, which I thought was fine. Eight's a good number. Plus the Patriots 24 karat and 98, 99 platinum medallion runs. So I still have a little bit left over. And then of course I've got like sort of the ultra modern stuff. So there's a bit of a balance here, but it was a pretty grueling process. I gave up. We talked through it extensively back in November, early November, right? Like, and uh, I was not going to do it, and then I think you kind of, I kind of entertained it, and then ended up. What happened was only two other people inquired about it, which surprised me. But you made a good point that it was only on Nick's story for like 24 hours. It wasn't like a standalone post. There wasn't anything about it that was like, if you missed it, you missed it, you know. And sometimes the story's not in your algorithm, you just don't see it. So maybe only a few hundred people saw that story. Only two others reached out, and so I was like, I'm not going to make an offer. But then apparently the other two both backed out and decided not to make any offer at all. At which point I was like, all right, you know, maybe I could do this. And I talked to you and like kind of came up with some sort of game plan. Then a week later decided just to go for it and do it. So
It
let me
was
ask you, yeah,
there
huh?
was soul, there, I'm sorry, there was a lot of
Yeah,
soul searching during that 3 or 4 days
yeah,
trying to figure out, was this the card? Like, we always talk about that. Is this the card I'm willing to give it all up for? You know what I
yeah,
mean? There was that soul search because you did have and still have a lot of them, but you had amazing cards that you really
right,
had to put on on trial.
yeah,
So to say, like, I mean, I knew about the deal obviously, and you would send me pictures of like, I think I'm keeping these ones, and then at first that pile was very very small. You remember, like, it was, and then you were like,
yeah.
now I think doing some more mapping and diving, you're like, I think I can really keep all these, and at that point it's like, yeah, it's time to really consider it.
The question, the original way I'd set up was like, all right, what can I keep if I really want the Bagwell Gem Masters? Got to keep that and the Favre 24 carat. And then I was like, that's it. I'd be able to keep those two. But then I was like, if I came to grips with the idea of I could move the Favre 24 carat, potentially get it back, but then I could keep these other seven cards, including all my best Pedro cards, the TO Rubies. Like, if I could do that, um, then maybe it's worth taking the shot, you know. And once I moved the big pieces, which was the Favre 24 carat, the Favre 98 PMG, the Pedro 98 PMG. Once those dominoes started falling, you kind of catch that momentum, and then those smaller cards, you know, they start to compound. And big shout out to Nick, like I said, the War Sports cards. This was funded through him. He was very easy to deal with, very organized. Had a spreadsheet where he would input all my transactions, would respond to me in a timely fashion. I will not be using another funding service most likely. His my experience with him in terms of funding something this big. No shade on Fund Your Cards, but I don't think it would have been this smooth had I used them. Plus, with a card of this value, not having any fee on it, like Fund Your Cards charges 10%. Nick does not charge a fee. I paid a lot of this in cash by selling myself, and so I guess there was a cash fee, but it was only 2%. And so, really, like, you know, it ends up being a fairly nominal price for having 90 days to pay off a card, right? Started to stagnate in early December because I had the well had run dry. Then I sent some stuff to Fanatics and got closer. And so finally, finally hit it. I'm curious, would you have, let's say you had let's say you had the opportunity now for let's say like the Jordan, maybe like the Jordan Rubies 97, and just let's say the numbers worked out to where you could keep, like, I don't know, your favorite card, and then like maybe six or seven other ones that you really like a lot. Do you think that you would
In a
really
heart
seriously, really?
in a heartbeat. Yeah,
Yeah.
because like, we've talked about this. Um, Cards like that, I don't have 17 Porsches outside. You know what I mean? It's like those kind of things don't happen. And if I had the ability to make the move when I did, I could go back, thinking down the road. I started from zero at one point with my collection. It's just
Right.
pretty, now I'm to the point where I've got the card that I want. So I could do that. I mean, there'd be a couple cards that would be hard, but I mean, I mean, in all honesty, I'd probably keep more Eddie Georges than anything because that's
Yeah,
that's what I would want. So a lot of those cards aren't terribly expensive anyway.
right.
So
That's true.
you know what I mean. And then like the Pace PMG, the green one, I wouldn't want to get rid of
Yeah,
that one. It just those kind of cards are hard to come by. So
right.
like that, but I would do it just because you've got that chance at something. Maybe you've thought about in your life that you were going to hold a card as important or as hard to find, or as
Yeah,
expensive. You know what I mean? It's like you would have said no, and,
right.
and now you're sitting there with this card that you would have never in your hobby life ever thought you would even
Yeah.
have it, or let alone have it in your hands.
And it's specific. Like, it's interesting because, like, I mean, I remember reading about this card was found in a dollar box. It's posted on Blowout. Someone was like, it was raw at the time. The guy posted pictures of it, and people were like, wow, what a find. I think people are like, that's got to be worth like $3,000, or something like that at the time. And because this was probably 2018, maybe something like that. But then the guy sold it. It got graded. Then it got posted for sale on Blowout, and it was like the guy was asking 8K, no one bid. And it was like 7K, no one bid. And it's just kind of going down. And like he couldn't get rid of it. And then I messaged him maybe a year or two ago, maybe it was a year and a half ago. I was like, hey, whatever happened to this, you don't have it by chance? And he was like, no, I sold it long ago. So at that point, I was like, okay, I mean, it was just a morbid curiosity. Like there was no chance that I would ever be able to get it. So it did really surprise me when Nick said he had found it and the guy had a price. And I think Nick was, honest with me and saying that, like, you know, offers were accepted. Like he would I could make offers and he would consider them. Because if he had been firm, I would have never gone down the road. Like it was too much. And so, I mean, where we landed it was right at like that maximum that I think I would have done. I might
Well,
have done a little bit more, but
yeah, question for you. You owned the Bagwell like that, like for 6 or 7 months prior. Do you think if you hadn't seen it and held one in the Bagwell, do you think you'd still want it, or do you think that had any help in making you want it, or
hmm,
you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
sometimes when you want a card really bad and you've never seen it in person, and then you get it, you know what I mean? So like you already
yeah,
had an idea of what card you were getting. I just wonder
yeah.
if that in it at all.
I think it did. I mean, it did for sure because I will say that like these cards are incredible in hand, and there's just qualities like the light dancing, the shine that does not show up on the scan. It just doesn't. And so when I got the bag on hand, I was very very surprised at how nice it looked in person. And so part of that was like I was like, okay, well, when we did our Favre rankings, that kind of compelled me to put, this one above the 98 for the aesthetic reason, but also the fact that there were two copies of the 98. There's there's at least one that's considered backdoor, but I believe both are stamped. So to me, this is sort of like the king of the hill, so to speak. And so seeing some of the Favre Now sell and the Rice 99 Gym Master sell, um, it kind of acted as external validation in the sense of like, okay, it's not insane to do this, especially because I did pay with, I mean, I paid this off with pretty much all cards, or actually all cards, not pretty much all cards. So that was like a key consideration for me was like you said, which is like, am I taking like my family eating ramen for 3 months? Like if that's the case, maybe not. But like my wife was like, it's cool if she's like, but it's got to be all cards. I was like, yeah, I think I can make it work. And so um, I did. And actually, in December when things started stagnating, I started regretting it and was like, man, I wish I had all these cards back and stuff like that. But then as I picked up momentum and got close to the end and got it in hand, I definitely think I made the right move because, like you said, you can always start over, right?
Mhm.
Because we've done it before,
Oh yeah. Now
started from scratch.
you might not get the cards that you had before or all of
Right.
them price point, but you'll get the ones you really want. And I think you're in it for the long haul, just like me. So there's a few cards you can wait for. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
you'll find them. You don't have to be in a rush. Cards
Yeah.
like that Brett Favre. If you wouldn't have been in a rush to get it, it would have went to another Favre collector, and you may never
Probably
see.
disappeared. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's like, plus, I mean, like you say, I like the looks of that one just because of how prominent he is in the front of it, and that
Hmm.
girl is so good with that background. I always call that a zipper effect, just from the super.
Yeah.
I think it's just a fantastic looking card, man. So pumped for you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate your support through the process, and to those guys out there who kind of helped me through it and talked me through it. Thank you to y'all too. This was definitely a sort of like a culmination of collecting, so to speak. And it's like all of you guys said the same thing. Was like, isn't this why we collect? Right? Like this is the purpose of collecting, which is like for a lot of people, not for everyone, but the purpose is to like the quest to find that one card. And when you can get the top one of, or what you consider to be the top one of your PC guys, like, why would you say no? You know, you know.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you gave away a lot of. Well, you didn't give away, but you moved a lot of great stuff. But I think you're going to be, happy about that. And when this becomes live and everybody hears that, I guarantee there's a lot of people waiting to know what your card is from your stories. And I think, I think a lot of mouths are going to drop on this card. So I mean, it's an amazing, amazing, find.
Yeah, I've had one person guess it correctly. I think other people have tried guessing, but I think a lot of people don't. I mean, it is such a sort of like one that
Oh,
you just wouldn't think of, like
it's
to
a
be a guess. You know?
yeah. I mean, it's not like you're not supposed to get the card you want. Yeah, I mean, if that
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you want an 86, go get an 86 forward. But when it's a one of one like that, I mean, it's mind blowing.
A lot of people thought it was because when I was doing this, Waldorf posted like that insane Gem Masters lot. A lot of people thought it was the '98 Gem Masters because I had teased like around that time, and then they saw that. But then Brady Hill posted that he got it, and so like after that, I think nobody was really sure what it was. But I've certainly teased it enough. So the card will be up on Instagram when this episode goes live. So hope you guys enjoy it. Hope you guys it meets your expectations. And
There's gonna be somebody out there like, shit, that's not what I was hoping for.
yeah, yeah. Someone was hoping for something even better. I don't know, maybe. But
One of your Patriots fans like you, probably wanted to see the Drew Brees one Gym Masters.
oh, the Drew Bledsoe,
They're like,
yeah,
they're like, man, I was hoping.
yeah. If I had to give up my whole collection for Drew Bledsoe, I would need some intervention. I think that's probably.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right, man. Well, hey, thanks so much for joining the show. We'll definitely have you back down the line when you make a big acquisition or two.
Yeah, hey, I appreciate it, man. I hope I did Brian justice. I hope everything's going all right with him.
I
But
think,
it was a lot of fun.
yeah, I think everybody will enjoy this episode. So thanks a bunch, guys, for listening. We'll catch you next time.